Now we get to listen to Bojan Ilić.
That's right, yeah.
He's going to explain the leading edge issues of how the insurance industry utilizes artificial intelligence for financial risk modeling and risk mitigation in future financial services. Bojan, welcome.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I'll continue talking about insurance. So, the lunch was now an hour and a half ago. So if anyone nods out, I'll like the insurance, not the lunch. But my background is in underwriting, so the risk assessment and not the creation of AI or data engineering. So it's more about not really how the sausage was made, more about the ability the sausage runs itself. So it's I'll talk more about financial risk management and how insurance industry uses AI to help it evaluate risks. So with respect to agenda, we'll review a few things to start with. So really first, the basic principles of insurance and financial risk management. Then we'll go a little bit into financial risk management and modeling as a whole. What current tools exist to model risk. We'll talk a little bit what is AI in general. And then to bring it all together, I'll chat about AI and financial risk management, benefits, and obviously some challenges and opportunities that we have this year. Okay, so basic principle of insurance, it's really is corporation. So the people pay in the pot, and then the few will have losses, they benefit from the financial security of everyone that taking. Losses of this few spread across many. So that's really the basic of insurance. Now, when you see the catastrophe occurs, you can see that this principle goes out the door pretty quickly. All of a sudden, the losses of the few become losses of the many. We really have only four ways to manage financial risk in general. The first phase would be to avoid it altogether. So for the insurance industry, for example, that would be not to offer flood coverage in a flood zone. That would be avoiding the risk altogether.
Can you bring the mic closer?
Closer, sure. Okay, better. All right. The second one would be just reducing risk. So once the risk is accepted, the insurance industry could transfer some of that risk, or actually reduce some of that risk by requesting specific mitigation measures to be implemented. And some of those things could be seismic improvements of the buildings, as well as just installing a simple backwater valve, so the sewer backup doesn't occur in case of a flood event. Next thing is transferring risk. So insurance as a whole is for the insured to transfer risk to the insurer, but the insurance industry as a whole has an option of transferring risks to the reinsurance market as well. So we can also take it on a much smaller level when the insurance industry imposes deductibles, which would really mean that the insured retains more of the risk, and therefore some of that risk is transferred back to the insured. This is very common in earthquake, and in Alberta here we have earthquake deductibles about 3%, while on Vancouver Island in BC they have deductibles up to 25%. So you can see how that risk is being transferred back to the insurer. Now the last really option is to retain the risk, and that really is just accept the risk and all the consequences of potential losses. So those are really some of the basics of risk management and of the insurance as a whole. Now, when we talk about financial risk modeling, so what it is, it's creating mathematical models that evaluate financial decision-making processes and their effects. So there are multiple models that can be used. There's statistical analysis, Monte Carlo simulations, and different things that have been used over the centuries. So one of those models is predictive analysis. So this is really the use of statistical data and algorithms, as well as machine learning, as well as AI, to identify the likelihood of one claim occurring. So, for example, that could be just identifying potential of carjackings in some area, or really identifying some of the fraudulent claims. So that could be some of the predictive analysis that's being used. The other one is called the generalized linear models. And what that is, it's looking at the respective variable and how they relate to the causation effect. So, for example, insurance, some of the past claims, we have learned that some of the variables like age, gender, location may impact the future claims with the same common denominators. So we can assess that, for example, in one area, there's a higher risk of flooding than the other. That's really just a general linear model from A to B. Then the next one will be risk assessment models. So that is the assessment of the particular risk occurring. So that could be anything from things like hurricanes to fires to deaths. Now, all of these, again, are just traditional methods to evaluate the financial risk management. The last one I want to touch on is capital allocation models. And capital allocation really is assessing amount of budgeting or capital that is being transferred to different business units or line of business based on their risk profile. Now, when we hear about capital, we're thinking money, obviously, but in insurance, capital is also often referred to as capacity. So when the insurance company deploys capital, they deploy capacity, and that's how we insure risk. So in a way, we deploy capacity like the financial institution and bank would deploy money. We invest in risk like they would invest in stock options or things like that. So by deploying capital, we take on risk and in a way invest in that risk. So as you can see that all of these models really, when they come together, it's all about understanding risk. It's all about being able to invest in risk with some knowledge, trying to make good predictions. So the next step really would be AI. So the AI is, you'll heard the term machine learning. And that is really, it consists of algorithms that enable AI system to determine and identify patterns in data. So that's really what machine learning is. So let's say that if we provide a system with 10,000 pictures of cats, over time, it will learn to recognize cats. And it can even grow to be more sophisticated by identifying cat breeds. Now, if we show that same system a picture of a dog, it will only really know that it's not a cat. Like it doesn't mean it doesn't like a dog or anything along those lines. Over time, however, it can possibly start learning about the dogs. Now, if you for the insurance industry, why is this important? Is that being ability to assess different types of data to better understand risk, really coming back to that same principle of insurance, which is cooperation. We are trying to understand risk and therefore get a better spread of risk. This really gives us another tool that we can use to analyze the risk as a whole. So just going to the AI in the financial modeling, one of the best advantages that we are seeing from the risk analysis is the segmentation of risk, because we are able to analyze multiple sources of data. That could be topographical maps, it could be social media feeds, traditional sources of data, as well as some of the more interesting photos, videos. So really having way more availability of data than we ever had before. We're not now really able to understand risk. Okay. I think I was right here. Okay, so one of the big advantages of understanding risk is it gives us option to reduce costs because we are able to spread risk better by understanding it. The price of the overall coverage goes down, and people also have the ability to get better coverage because we are more certain in our decision-making process. So the other big benefit of AI is what it has to do with the fraud detection. So a big part of insurance industry cost is dealing with fraud. And being able to determine some of those patterns that detect frauds really gives us ability to step up and reduce some of those costs. So really for if you think about fraud, you can think about some of the very easy things to consider is use of same bank accounts, phone numbers, addresses in lots of unrelated claims. But the AI can go well beyond these simple things and even get the similarities in losses. So they're able to determine things like ARSO profiles, which is just how one loss differentiates from the other. And that just gives us a bit more knowledge of how to prevent some of these huge identity catch people who are organizing these things. The big other part about analyzing data. So the big other part would be customer service. So on the beginning of 2022, about half the vehicles that were in for the repairs due to damages had the back order part. So just due to the supply issues. So the number of calls to the claims department really increased because there was such a big backup of just repairing these vehicles. And if one of you ever submitted a claim, you probably thought that's a very emotional time. For some people, it's very emotional because maybe they're injured, maybe you lost a loved one. Claim adjuster often told to people on the first day of their life in a day. So actually not being able to take those calls, those important calls, and just really maintaining files, just answering questions about back orders and things like that was the most effective use of their time. With AI, they're able to answer some of those questions quickly so that people are satisfied and free up the adjusters to do actually what they're paid to do, and that is adjust claims and help people when they really need it. The next step would be the underwriting side as well. So the underwriting, it's all about the risk assessment, understanding risk, understanding what are the consequences of those risks. So by providing personalized recommendations from the AI and answering customers' questions quickly, they're really able to improve the service as a whole. Now, for what is starting to happen is that things that really fit within a box, we can approve those things without any of the underwriter intervention, and underwriters can again focus on those more challenging files. So the things that really require human attention. The last but not least, it really is the risk assessment as a whole. So as I said, multiple sources that can be accessed all at once. There's so much data available out there now, everything from home listings to just all the search to Google and everything else. Flood mapping, which is improving day after day. For earthquake, we have lots of development on that side as well, with the new maps being constantly drawn, new risks appetite being opened. It is very hard for us as humans to analyze all the data efficiently. And the insurance industry is extremely competitive market. In Canada, we have over 200 property and casualty insurance companies writing business and competing against each other. So the cost and the time effort is important. So being able to analyze and make better predictions reduces operating costs for the insurance companies. And in such a competitive market, those those savings are passed on to the insured as well. So AI has quite a few benefits really for insurance company, and just its ability to analyze these vast amounts of data. It makes it a very good fit for the financial risk model. Now, okay, so challenges and opportunities. So, as I said, it really has extreme potential to transform the industry as a whole. But it doesn't come with challenges as most things do. So the three significant obstacles for us is first one is privacy and data security. So the insurance companies really need to be transparent of how they collect data, how they use data. They also need to be very conscious and very protective to ensure that there's no misuse or unauthorized access to their data. The second thing, and this one is probably in the minds of everyone right now, is just the potential of flow data input leading to the errors in the AI prediction. So if you think about its bias, so the AI systems aren't inherently biased. They're not built to be biased. However, they have a big potential to amplify the biases of data that they're put into. So the data can be often be biased just because of the organization or the person collecting data, but can also be really biased from the just perspective of what's being asked from that system to deliver as a whole. So it's a much bigger problem than just really reviewing the data. So a couple of things to go about with to deal with biases. First, they need to have audits on a regular basis. So the AI system, they have to be audited. Corrective actions has to be taken on a regular basis. There has to be extensive testing of data before this learning algorithm is being fed, because we want to prevent the bias. So the data and as a whole needs to really represent the population as a whole that the insurance company is serving, so that there's no that bias being introduced by it. And the last thing that, and we talk about disaster management, and we heard a lot about climate change. So probably the biggest problem for AI is that relies heavily on past records. So the AI learns from previous disasters, from previous claims, from previous, well, just from the past. The AI learns from the past. And because climate change as a whole, it's not really a linear thing. There's no great way to predict when the next disaster is going to strike or what the magnitude of it's going to be. It is very hard from the previous data to actually get the full effect of the climate change from the AI. So this makes it very hard to predict some of the low frequency and the severity of the disasters coming our way. So the best thing that we can do is really just understand the risk better. And if we understand the risk better, we can prepare better. We can use technology like AI that can not only assess the risk, but possibly provide some recommendations for mitigations as well. That would give us the opportunity to actually be ready when a disaster strikes. Now, as we talked a lot about natural disasters, and that's what the symposium is about, but I think it's important to acknowledge the understanding of a disaster has also evolved over time. We live in a digital world, and we face increased risk of cyber terrorism, ransomware attacks, and cyber incidents. The exponential increase in cyber incidents, as well as the growing sophistication of the threat actors, pose a significant threat to both analysts and the organizations. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, like our grids, could potentially be way more devastating than anything we have seen from the natural disasters. And it is important to understand that AI technology is becoming a key tool in managing these cyber incidents. So just to give you a bit of perspective on the size of the problem, currently there's about 1.8 billion websites in the world. And every day, there are about 20,000 fraudulent websites.
I'm getting an echo, so
Okay.
I'm just adjusting.
And every day, about 20,000 fraudulent websites are created. And during all that, the ransomware attacks happens every 11 seconds worldwide. So this massive increase in cyber incidents is not something that we can manually respond to. And we can get all our kids out to their big mom's basement to help us with this. It's really not going to help us. One of the overwhelming impact that this is having on the industry, it's actually quite concerning. So the AI is providing tools for us to respond in real time, identify threats quickly, analyze data and trends, and respond in real time so we can mitigate or at least lessen what some of the damage that's being done by these cyber incidents. Now, overall, as I said, AI has immense potential to transform the insurance industry and the world as a whole. And over the last couple of weeks, it's been certainly probably one of the top news across the board has been ChatGPT and all the AI advancement there. Bill Gates last week said that he believes it was the biggest technological advancement since the microprocessor was invented. I think it's also important to remember that first and foremost, insurance is about people. And I don't believe that's going to change. It just as Scott mentioned, one big thing that AI is missing really is the emotional intelligence. So it's a bit hard to call something intelligence without an emotional part as well. So I don't believe that it will change everything. Removing emotion out of insurance wouldn't be a benefit to anyone, especially not the insurance companies. We do depend and exist for the reason of paying out claims. And now just to the subject of the insurance companies' earnings, I just want to mention that combined ratio of the insurance industries in Canada is about 98%. That means that the insurance company pays out 98 cents on every dollar that comes into the industry, which works way more efficiently than any charity pretty much out there. And it puts all that money back into the economy. And with the advancement, both in obviously government sector as well as the private sector, we're really able to come together like this and talk about these problems. But I think the most important, when it comes to AI in general and with insurance, I think it's important to take advantage of some of these new tools that are coming out so we can assess the risk better. But it's really more about making sure that we can appreciate the limitations and putting the safeguards in place so we don't go down the rabbit hole and really end up in a bad spot in a few years. Because they are still, it's a new technology, it's a new tool, it's very promising, but it's not without issues. So that's kind of my high level review. Does anyone have any questions?
In Parliament, we've been looking at AI quite a bit. Cybersecurity goes hand in hand and protection of privacy of Canadians. So with your AI, you are talking better customer service. So definitely data is being collected from all your client base as well as modeling based upon historic events and trying to determine the future. As you say, there's a bias with AI, as we saw with Clearview AI and facial recognition systems and the challenges with that. So how are you overcoming the bias? You said ongoing auditing, but then from a cybersecurity standpoint, how are you dealing with the barrage of attacks that are happening every day? Government of Canada's attacked over 3,000 times a day. So people, you got the ransomware, you got other nefarious actors out there that would love to get their hands on this data. How are you going about with your cybersecurity to ensure that your clients aren't being compromised?
So
from both the standpoint of having their information stolen or the bias actually impacting the coverage that you're going to get.
So the bias is the big one. The bias is more on the front end, where you have the incorrect data being inputted into the system from which it learns. So it is very important to do the testing upfront. We cannot rely on AI to make correct predictions if we aren't comfortable with the data we are feeding it. So the testing has to be done on the front end before it's even sent to AI. Now, the current models for statistical analysis, one of which is called the Monte Carlo simulation. In fact, it does this. It takes all of the variables and then replaces the unknowns with the average one. So it averages it across. It's really, it flattens the curve in a way. So what happens is, because it flattens the curve, it paints a very, very large area with the same brush. So you can see sometimes for the flood mapping, their entire postal codes that's with the same brush, because that's really the only way that the system can do it. And that in a way is biased to begin with, because there's too much, especially on a larger scale where there's a big spread of risk where the municipalities aren't as large. The same postal code could have hundreds of square kilometers, and that's really not the great representation of the area. So the AI has the ability there to segment the risk further within each of those post nodes based on topographical maps, based on prior losses, based on just the flood mapping that's already been done. So those individual data points need to be tested individually, but artificial intelligence really benefits is putting it all together so that different conclusions can be drawn out of those multiple data points. However, the testing really doesn't. That's not an optional piece that has to be done upfront. Now, on the back end, when we are talking about specifically about cybersecurity and things, and that is, I would say that private protection of the personal information is very helpful. One of the most important things on the minds of the insurance industry, because we have, I would say, way more information than anybody, really by the financial industries, credit records, everything about today's buildings are built, there, all the there's lots of information there. So using the protected DNS, one of the things that many different options that companies invest millions of dollars on the cybersecurity. And that's really is no different than the government. And we see that even when everything is done right, these mistakes still get made and people still compromise the data, and that happens across smaller companies, larger companies, government. That's not something that I feel like it will go away. And I understand your concern that with AI, there's even more option for data making. So I think we need to double down on the security. But by not engaging with this new tool, we actually do predisposition ourselves against ourselves in a way that we have so much data that we're currently analyzing in underwriting and risk assessment that it's costing us lots of time, which in turn costs lots of money. So to reduce costs for me and for you, we do need to improve the way we are doing it. So that's a bit of a trade-off, but yeah, it's not an easy answer. I can say it's a question. There are definitely problems on both sides. I think constant audits, constant testing, and really doubling down on the security is the only way.
Just got a question from Zoom here. So, all right. So we have a question from Dr. Joe Howard, and he prefaces his question and is addressing this both to you and a little bit to Scott, who spoke earlier about emotional intelligence. So he says, my question is conceptual and directed to the two speakers I just mentioned. He said that you both eloquently explained models of emotional intelligence and then artificial intelligence. He said, thank you for framing the difference between the two, and that they have different contexts, operational versus commercial as well. But his key question is, during the decision-making processes that address uncertainty surrounding disasters, is there a risk that outputs from emotional intelligence which will conflict with those of cognitive or fact-based intelligence and those of algorithm-based intelligence, artificial intelligence? So he wants to know sort of, are there conflicting outputs? And when there are conflicting outputs between the AI, the emotional intelligence, which one prevails?
I take a stab at first. I believe that it's an excellent question, but I believe that really the artificial intelligence it's limited by the perimeters that it was built from. So, and it cannot work outside of those perimeters. Emotional intelligence, humans we can adapt much better than anything else. So there will definitely be a difference in output. And I would say the final, those critical decisions, I think the final decision should be left to the emotional intelligence and to the human versus artificial intelligence. Because at least at this time, artificial intelligence is not there where it should be truly making those decisions.
Yeah, I would agree. As Bojan has said, the limitations on AI are predicated by the data that's entered into AI by the persons who do it. So their emotional intelligence and their biases shape how AI is shaped. So I would agree that ultimately we can consider both, weigh them against each other, and we may find good common ground between the two. but there has to be human analysis in the end.
Yes, and having the AI as a part of is the tool that helps. Possibly it does the research, possibly it has some predictions or recommendations as a whole. It can be very effective as I said, it can analyze vast amounts of data at much faster pace than what humans can. But on the end, it really should be human decision. And that's what I said, the insurance is about people, and therefore those decisions should be made by humans.